Hello everyone and welcome back to another Figurehead Reviews video, and today we are going to be taking a look at the Marvel Legends Marvel Studios The First 10 Years Ant-Man and Yellowjacket set based on the 2015 Ant-Man movie. You got a lot going on in this front window box here and the artwork. You got the Marvel Studios The First 10 Years logo, we got the Ant-Man movie logo, the Ant-Man logo, and then obviously we got everything going on the inside. On the top, you do get that very light embossed there, Marvel Studios, The First 10 Years. On this side, we get a couple pieces of artwork based on the movie. On this side, we actually get a small read-up. We'll see if I can focus in. So if you want to read that, go for it. It looks like it's probably just a bit about the movie, and I'm not going to go into too much of that right now. And then on the back, we do get, it's 8th in the series for the Marvel Studios, The First 10 Years. Looks like we get a movie poster here, and then we actually get a read-up for both Ant-Man and Yellowjacket. So for Ant-Man, Scott Lang is enlisted by Hank Pym to suit up as Ant-Man and fight against competing forces intending to use the incredible shrinking Pym particles for evil. And for Yellowjacket, the new lead of Pym Industries, Darren Cross, threatens to sell his highly weaponized Yellowjacket suit to the criminal organization Hydra. And then down at the bottom, you do have a UPC code, so you can check with your local retailer to see if they have this in stock. But enough about that. Let's go ahead and get this open and take a look at Ant-Man and Yellowjacket. And here is Ant-Man and Yellowjacket outside of their packaging, going at it here. This was actually really fun to pose because I was trying to get something that had them in the midst of battle, and I don't know how he is standing up right now. He is balanced on those legs, and that hand from Yellowjacket is barely holding his neck in place somehow. But really cool. There are some things that I wish we would have gotten different, primarily with some of the articulation on those little stingers there, which we'll go into. I love this too. He's almost got the stinger in his side. But there are a couple of things that I wish they did do different, primarily with the Yellowjacket figure. And then I'm going to go into one really big gripe that I have regarding the alternate head that came with Ant-Man for the Paul Rudd. And then I'm also going to point out a really big oversight with the miniatures that came with these figures as well. There's a couple of things that make this set really cool, the biggest one being that we get a Yellowjacket figure, but there's a couple of things that really kind of bummed me out about the set as well. So first, let's jump in. We're going to get a better look at those miniatures, do a comparison to the old ones, and then we're going to take a better look at the figures themselves, including that Paul Rudd head sculpt. So looking now real quick here at the miniatures up close, and these are the same miniatures that we had gotten with the old Ant-Man figure, and they just reused them and did a repaint. So in this case, they actually did a lot less paint. Let's see, how close can I get on here? Try not to block the light. But yeah, a lot less paint. We just got the little yellow bits there, and you got some sculpt work there on the stingers. I don't know, this side just doesn't look all that great to me. And you got a little spot of silver down there. So, yeah. And then by comparison, this is the one that came with the original Ant-Man figure. And we got silver on the stingers. You get a little bit of paint there on the shoulders. You got some silver on the helmet with the yellow. So I don't know if this one, it's been a while since I've seen the movie. This one definitely looks more like the figure that we got with all the black versus the silver, but yeah. And then we get our little miniature Ant-Man, which here's the thing that really bugs me about this. He is in the same sitting pose because the original Ant-Man that we got, which was this little guy, actually came with an ant, or Antony, to be able to sit on, which is why he kind of has that sitting pose. And we get the same sitting down version with the new Ant-Man. As a matter of fact, it doesn't look like they did much in the way of paint at all, or not paint, but just the design. And in fact, I'd almost say that this one, the original Ant-Man, looks a little bit better painted. But either way, I think it was really stupid that we got a sitting down Ant-Man with nothing for him to sit on, versus, you know, something that he could have been in some sort of battle pose. Oops, that's the old one. Some sort of battle pose with this miniature Yellowjacket. But oh well. So let's go ahead now, though, and get a better look at that alternate Paul Rudd head sculpt and take a look at the figures up close and in detail. And starting first here with Ant-Man. So we get the throwback uniform here to the original Ant-Man release, but they update the head sculpt to give us the more movie accurate design on the helmet. And just for a reference, here is the original release, and if you look, it is the same helmet, and it looks like they just went back and remolded the mouthpiece, because we have the same design, the same look, and everything on there. Just with the old one, we got the dry brushing. With the new one, we don't get any of that dry brushing, which is kind of a bummer, to be honest with you, because as we look down, I feel like there's some opportunities where both, if we combine the two, we would have gotten a superior figure. So the first thing that you'll notice too, on the chest, we have the texture for the suit over here versus the original one. No texture. You get that dry brushing throughout. You get a little different style paint there on the gauntlets, and you get some extra details there with some red here, but not on the old one. And pretty much the legs look good. But yeah, some opportunity there where, I don't know, I feel like they could have done the dry brushing or something else and really made this guy just the ultimate looking figure there. So, but I kind of jumped ahead real quick, taking a look at the Paul Rudd alternate head. So we got the smirking Paul Rudd with the Ant-Man 2, Ant-Man and Wasp, and we get a very stoic and plain-faced Paul Rudd. There we go, for the original Ant-Man. And it's a good-looking head sculpt, and it's not too dissimilar from that smirking one that we got. So it actually came out looking good. You got the stubble there, and it's a very good likeness. One thing I do want to point out, though, so if you were thinking about using this Paul Rudd head or this Paul Rudd head on, interchangeable figures, look at that. They're actually different sizes. So the original Ant-Man had the smaller head port there, and the new Ant-Man has the bigger one. So you cannot put this head on the Ant-Man 2 figure, and you can't put this head on the Ant-Man 1 figure. Well, I mean, I guess you can, but it's just gonna bob there. It's not gonna sit on and do much else. So that is a little bit of a bummer, though. But again, looking back at the rest of this figure, so I mentioned some of the other details, just kind of taking a look up close. So you get that texture look to it, and belt came out looking good. Yeah, overall, the figure did come out looking good. It's really well painted, so no real complaints in terms of the figure itself, had we not had an example of what it could have been there with some of that dry brushing. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on to Yellowjacket. And here is Yellowjacket up close, and that is a very cool design that they did here. I love the lenses that they put on there, and then you have the sculpt work underneath. Really helps to accentuate the fact that this is a helmet, and makes it a little more unique as opposed to just being one big molded piece of plastic. So that definitely came out looking very, very cool. Going down the rest of the figure, so we can see some very cool texturing. You have kind of that honeycomb design on the inside there with the pattern throughout the various hexagons and such. And then you got the texture on like the shoulders here, and then a little bit in there, making it look more like a fabric or part of the uniform. And the paint work actually didn't come out too bad. The lines look good. You have a couple of spots down here on the abs where you can see some of the black coming through, and a little too much paint up there where you can't see some of the finer details. And some of the line work, well, actually when you get kind of close, there's some opportunities, but from a distance it didn't come out too bad. You got a fisted hand over on this side, and then an open hand over on that side, which is really cool. I'm glad they gave us an open hand at least, as opposed to like a gripping hand or something. That just I don't know, when it's a character that doesn't have anything to grab onto, I would prefer something like that, open hand. And then going down the legs, we just get more of that hexagonal design. Very neat. And then, of course, he has his back piece here, which is really, really unique looking. You got, you know what, we're going to pop it off. So it does come off. It's just a port there. But to get some close-up look, you get some pretty neat looking sculpt work on there. You get the little hinges. Unfortunately, not all of them are hinges. That is kind of a bummer. You get some basic articulation on it, but nothing too crazy. And these actually, just so you know, they can come out. They are just a port there. So, and same thing on that side. And then, as mentioned, it is just a peg that you pop on the back there, and there you go. So, very cool. But let's go ahead and take a look now at the scale and articulation on Yellowjacket. And looking at the scale here on Yellowjacket, we can see to the top of his head, he's coming in at almost 6.5 inches, while these guys are putting him almost at 7 inches for total height. Real quick, I'm actually going to take his backpack off and show you the articulation on here. So no articulation up here other than rotation, but you do have rotation as well as a hinge on these bottom parts of the stingers. And then you have a hinge right here, which is just a standard peg joint. And then we get one more right here, which is similar to like the female elbow joint, where it is a single joint and it does have rotation in it. You don't get any kind of articulation here, so unfortunately these will always be curved inwards in some fashion. So that is a little bit of a downer, but you get enough articulation to get a few decent poses out of it. Now looking at Yellowjacket himself, you got a head that can go, of course, all the way around. Can bury his chin, not too badly. Can look up, well, that's about it. He's got arms that can come up. Good T-pose. You got full rotation here. We got a bicep swivel, double jointed elbows, a little loose there. We got a hinge as well as rotation at the wrist. You got an ab crunch, doesn't do much. You can go back, but if you got that back piece in, you're not going to be going back much. Waist articulation, you got legs that can come apart that far, kick forward, kick backwards. You have a kind of a mid or lower thigh cut, actually. It's not the upper thigh cut. You have a double jointed knee, and then you do have a ankle hinge with ankle pivot. And taking a look at the scale on Ant-Man, we can see he's coming in at just a little over 6 inches tall. And for articulation, you got a head that can fully rotate around, can look down, meh, not too bad. Looking back, he gets on that thing, so unfortunately he can't look back very far. You have arms that can come back or come up in a pretty decent T-pose, full rotation, bicep swivel there, double jointed elbows. You have a hinge as well as rotation on the wrist. You got an ab crunch, meh, barely even gets back. Waist rotation, legs that can come apart that far, kick forward, kick backwards. We have upper thigh cut, double jointed knees, and then we do have a ankle pivot and hinge. And here is a bit of Ant-Man evolution for you. We have the original release Ant-Man from the MCU version a few years ago, the first 10 years Marvel Studios Ant-Man. We have the Infinity War Wave 2 Ant-Man from Ant-Man and Wasp. Then we have the Walgreens exclusive Ant-Man and the Toys R Us exclusive The Astonishing Ant-Man comic book figure. And one last quick shot here of Ant-Man and Yellowjacket standing next to each other, so you can see that Yellowjacket is slightly taller than that Ant-Man figure. And that about wraps it up for this review, guys. And, you know, overall, I love the concept of these Marvel Studios the first 10 years, looking back and getting us figures that we didn't get during their initial run. So I love that we actually got some revamped figures, including Yellowjacket. I think it is cool to get that in there. And I'm glad that we get the updated proper mask or proper helmet for Ant-Man based on the first movie. There's a couple of complaints that I have, you know, the miniatures being one of them for sure, but you can still have some fun with them like we got here and here. And, you know, it's still a bummer that he's sitting down like that, but I suppose you can do something like this, although it just looks like Yellowjacket's holding a toy. But again, I think it was awesome that we got the updated figures, and I love that we got the updated, or not even updated, just that we got a Yellowjacket that was pretty well executed in my opinion. So but enough about that, guys. That is it for the review. So please make sure to hit that like button down below if you like the review. Make sure to hit subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. And as always, thanks for watching my video, and have a great day.